I had to reinvent myself to make my dreams come true.
You might think you know Nicolas Cage, an over-the-top 90s action star who ran out of luck.
There are movies that I've made that certainly have not worked.
A washed-up actor who became a meme and a punchline.
I've made 2 movies a month for the last 5 years.
But this is just a lazy caricature. You don't survive 5 decades in a fickle industry like Hollywood by being a joke.
We don't get a lot of things to really care about.
He's always adapted, even if it wasn't to everyone's taste.
I think it pissed a lot of people off.
But his willingness to take risks has produced an incomparable body of work that's experimental, eclectic, and extraordinary.
I never want to get calcified in one particular type of style.
This is the reinvention of Nicolas Cage Unpacked. Nicolas was born January 7th, 1964 in Long Beach, California, but his stage name Cage wouldn't come about until the 80s. Instead, he grew up Nicolas Coppola and was exposed to film from an early age.
And I think I must have been 5, and he was screening movies like Nosferatu and The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. And it gave me nightmares, but they were beautiful nightmares. They stayed with me.
When I was 8, I was making home movies with my brother
Was that right?
Christopher. I had crane shots planned out when I was 9 years old in my mind's eye walking to school. I was in 4th grade and I was picked on by the bullies on the bus. I put on my older brother's cowboy boots and I put these sunglasses on and I dressed in these tight jeans and I had all this swagger and attitude. And I went on the bus and I said that I was Roy Wilkinson. I was Nicky's cousin and I'm gonna beat you up if you pick on him anymore. And they stopped picking on me, so I thought that was like my first time that I could actually maybe play a part. And then when I was 15, I started working at the Fairfax movie theater selling popcorn and tickets at the concession stand, trying to figure out how to get from the stand to the screen.
It was about wanting to be James Dean in Rebel Without a Cause and wearing that red jacket, wanting to be John in Saturday Night Fever. I came out of the cinema electrified.
But the biggest obstacle he faced was his surname. You might have heard of his uncle, Francis Ford Coppola. He directed iconic films like The Godfather.
It's not personal, Sonny. It's strictly business.
And Apocalypse Now.
Any man brave enough to fight with his guts strapped on him can drink from my canteen any day.
The Coppola name cast a huge shadow over Nicolas's career and led to accusations of nepotism.
I watched him in high school really struggling with the Coppola name.
Nicolas Coppola was a very scared little boy.
People would not stop saying things like, I love the smell of Nicholas in the morning because of Apocalypse Now and Robert Duvall saying,
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
I had to sort of reinvent who I was going to be.
So I changed it to Cage. It's a combination of Luke Cage from Marvel Comics and John Cage, the avant-garde composer.
When I went out on Valley Girl, and I was 17, and nobody had known that I had changed my name. They did not know who I was. And it was immediately like a giant weight had come off my body.
And just like that, Nicolas Cage was born and the work started rolling in. This period was all about experimentation. His aim was to go against the grain.
Stanislavski said the worst thing you can do as an actor is imitate. Me being me, I wanted to break those rules and start imitating. So like Andy Warhol would take these great collages of icons. I thought, why not do that with Elvis?
This is a snakeskin jacket. And for me, it's a symbol of my individuality and my belief in personal freedom.
I applaud any kind of progressive experiment.
This could make you unpopular. You gotta be careful. You're supposed to conform.
Well, that's a risk I'll have to take.
One risk was embracing the style he grew up watching.
I wanted to find a way to go back to the German expressionistic style like Nosferatu or Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
And it made for a cult classic.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z! Huh?
In Vampire's Kiss, Cage plays Peter Lowe, a literary agent who believes he's turning into a vampire.
Peter is losing his mind, and so he can think he's Nosferatu. And I can therefore design a German expression approach to modern film performance.
It wasn't the first time he lent into this style.
I lost my hand! I lost my bride! Johnny has his hand! Johnny has his bride! You want me to take my heartbreak, put it away and forget?
That was a designed, rather choreographed move that I got from an old Fritz Lang movie called Metropolis. So that was a direct steal.
These early years were also about pushing boundaries. Cage went method.
The character was in bandages, and I refused to take the bandages off. I was in bandages for 3 months, and I didn't want to see my face as in the normal visage. And I also had my 2 baby teeth extracted because I thought that, which I had to do anyways, it did give me a sense of disfigurement and pain. I would walk around outside with these bandages on my face, with these 2 missing teeth. And the way people would look at me, I'll never forget it. I learned so much about society. There was cruelty, there was laughter, there was mocking, and it was extraordinary. And that all, went into the character.
He went even further in Vampire's Kiss, with one of his most shocking performances on screen, eating a live cockroach.
What I can tell you is the most disgusting, horrible memory I have of any experience on a movie set.
I had to rinse my mouth out with 100 proof vodka. That was absolutely horrifying. And it was soft. Not crunchy, folks.
He didn't just want to make an impression on theatre screens. Cage wants to make noise everywhere.
Welcome, Nicolas Cage.
I gotta give you my Wild at Heart t-shirt. I'll just put this jacket
It's a
back.
big night for me, I can tell you.
Cage was still a young man trying to figure out his new persona, but was he trying too hard? 3 decades on, he doesn't look back on this appearance fondly.
I don't really like that guy. I'm embarrassed that I ever was that guy, and I was just completely obnoxious and irreverent and arrogant and crazy.
By the mid-90s, Cage was an established actor, enjoying modest success in drama, romance, and comedy films. But he was still searching for that iconic role, one that he could put everything he had learned into and fulfill his childhood dreams. That all changed with leaving Las Vegas.
What did you think when you first read that script?
That was the feeling that I had with East of Eden and James Dean. It's like, this is the kind of movie I really want to make.
Cage played Ben Sanderson, an alcoholic screenwriter who's lost everything and arrives in Las Vegas to drink himself to death.
My cousin, Roman Coppola, he said, you should go hire Tony Dingman, who was at that time, very drunk, also a poet. But I would watch him. He would say the most poetic, drunken things. Like,
we mustn't kick the bar, we
lean into the bars.
just lean into the railing. Because it's not vino veritas, it's
And vino veritas. He would just spout these things out, and of course I put them all in the movie.
I had developed a sense of backstory for Ben, which is that he had gone through a divorce, was trying to get custody of his son. And in my own life, I was really trying to get that one day out of the week to see my kid at the time. Well, I meant it. And Ben meant it.
And I made that movie saying to myself, I'm never going to win an Academy Award. Nobody wants to make this movie. And so it was completely unexpected.
And the Oscar is awarded to Nicolas Cage.
13 years on from relative obscurity starring in Valley Girl, Cage had won the biggest award going.
I know it's not hip to say it, but I just love acting, and I hope that there will be more encouragement for alternative movies where we can experiment and fast forward into the future of acting.
And he meant it. Cage would go against the grain again, subverting expectations by moving away from the genres he was known for. It was time for another reinvention. He pivoted to action and adventure and didn't look back.
That was about staying unpredictable and trying something new again. I think it pissed a lot of people off. It was like, well, you're an actor's actor. You're not supposed to be doing adventure films.
His critics may not have approved, but Cage enjoyed instant success with Face Off and Con Air topping the US box office in their opening weekends.
put the bunny back in the box.
I remember not really comprehending what was happening to me. I had two movies that were at #1 all at the same time, and it was an extraordinary experience. Face Off was really the direct result of another movie I made called Vampire's Kiss, which I considered my laboratory. So I was like a dream come true. Here I was doing these kind of abstract, ontological facial expressions in a movie that was going to make a ton of money.
The genre of films may have changed, but Cage continued to explore different ways to give the most authentic performance. And in preparation for playing a paramedic in Bringing Out the Dead, he went on ride-alongs with an ambulance crew.
I do recall one kid, African-American kid, got shot through the ass, and I'm in the back of the wagon, and he still got gum in his mouth, and I just, give me your gum. I took the gum out of his mouth because I thought he was going to choke. I did learn about a few things that were pretty hardcore.
But perhaps Cage's most dramatic approach came in Ghost Rider, where he played a motorcycle stuntman with a flaming skull head. He developed a style which he dubbed Nouveau Shamanism.
Pre-Christian times in the village, there would be the village shaman, and he or she would go into flights of the imagination to try to bring answers to help whatever the condition or issues were within the village. And movies do that. When I did Ghost Rider, I had Aaron Samedi, which is a New Orleans voodoo Loa. He was like a skull. I had that makeup on my face the whole time. I wouldn't talk to anybody. I had these little objects that were literally like tiny sarcophagus that came out of Egyptian pyramids. And I would sew them into my leather jacket. So when you go in on set with all that energy on you, all those power objects and with those memories or dreams that you're recruiting, you don't have to act. You just feel it.
That's right.
This period also saw Cage occasionally step back into dramatic roles. He faced his most challenging acting performance yet, starring in the drama comedy Adaptation, where he portrayed brothers Charlie and Donald Kaufman.
So we'd shoot the whole thing one way, it was either Charlie or Donald, and then take what I did, put an earpiece in my ear, and do playback while I looked at a tennis ball on a stand like that over there.
You are what you love, not what loves you. That's what I decided a long time ago.
It was probably the most acrobatic challenge as a thespian I've ever had, and I'm not even sure I could do it again.
His efforts paid off, securing an Oscar nomination for Best Actor, further cementing his reputation as one of the most diverse and yet bankable actors in Hollywood in the mid-noughties. But his life and career would be turned upside down.
It was a manic Monday in the financial markets. The Dow tumbled more than 500 points after two pillars of the street tumbled over the weekend.
Cage was heavily invested in real estate. He reportedly owned 15 properties worldwide, from a $25 million waterfront home in California to a $10 million castle in Europe, and even a $3 million deserted island in the Bahamas. The economic downturn saw his $150 million fortune wiped out.
The real estate market crashed, and I couldn't get out in time.
How much money did you end up owing to the IRS and to your creditors?
I paid them all back, but it was about $6 million.
Financial troubles were only the start. In October 2009, Cage's father, August, died from a heart attack, aged 75. They were best friends, and his passing hit him hard. In a 2022 interview, Cage recalled his father would say, "Who's Nicolas going to talk to when I'm gone?" And then came the memes.
I went online stupidly and I Googled my name. Up came this video, Nicolas Cage loses his crap or whatever. And it started going viral and it started compounding on itself exponentially. And suddenly I was a meme.
And I kept looking at going, what is happening to me? That's not how I meant it.
There was nothing I could do to stop it, nothing I could do to control it.
He quickly became one of the most meme celebrities. A 3-decade-long career was quickly being reduced to parody.
How am I not in that movie?
For Nicolas freaking Cage, okay? Oh, yeah! Oh, I'm a cat. I'm a sexy cat.
It was a hugely chaotic period for him, navigating this new, unwelcome attention, grieving for his father, overcoming the breakdown of his third marriage, and working harder than ever before to pay off his multi-million-dollar debts, as well as paying $20,000 a month trying to keep his mother out of a mental institution. These financial struggles forced him to adapt. In the 2010s, no longer a Hollywood leading man, he became a video-on-demand actor, averaging 4 films a year.
That had to be a dark period for you.
It was dark, sure.
Did the work help you
No
get
doubt,
through?
work.
Yeah.
Work was always my guardian angel. It may not have been blue chip, but it was still work.
This phase of his career remains the most scrutinized and is littered with bad reviews.
When somebody suggests during that period of time, when they say, these critics say like, oh, he's just here for a paycheck and he's phoning it in.
Even if the movie ultimately is crummy, they know I'm not phoning it in, that I care.
Cage would graft and graft and graft, finally managing to settle his debts in 2020. It would be a liberating moment. He could now be more selective with his work, and it sparked a renaissance. Starting with Pig, where he played a chef on a mission to recover his beloved truffle hog, a role he would be forever grateful to director Michael Sanofsky for.
You know, that was a dry period for me. So I called him Archangel Michael because he really pulled me out of what some people in the industry would call the boneyard. I felt that in that movie, I had become seasoned and I had entered the room. I think it's probably my best movie, and I think I'll put that up against Leaving Las Vegas or anything else. This isn't real.
Then came 2 films where Cage was able to reclaim the narrative around his so-called over-the-top style, which had been exaggerated by memes.
Nick Cage.
In an incredibly meta move, Cage played himself in the unbearable weight of massive talent, which poked fun at his unconventional persona. A year later, Cage starred in Dream Scenario, playing Paul Matthews, whose life has turned upside down when millions of strangers start seeing him in their dreams. Paul is forced to navigate this newfound fame overnight, a feeling which Cage related to.
I might have been the first actor who woke up one morning and somebody had put a montage of meltdown moments and freaking out, and then it went viral overnight around the world. And nothing I could do could stop it. Then I read Dream Scenario and I said, yes, now I can turn this lead into a little bit of gold.
So I put all those emotions into this character of Paul Matthews. He doesn't look like me, he doesn't move like me, he doesn't talk like me, but those genuine feelings of frustration are in that character, in that moment, in that scene.
I don't want to be controversial.
In spite of his efforts to adapt, Cage may always be unfairly stuck with a caricature reputation due to his acting style, but also because of who he is. Cage has never stopped being eccentric.
How good is your kung fu?
Oh, sex is where it's at.
We're just gonna have a blast!
I was drinking champagne at 9 years old.
They all ran after the farmer's wife I just acquired, who cut off their tails with a kitchen knife. 2 king cobras. Does that make it impossibly strange that I had a 2-headed snake? And he's doing this dance, and every now and then I'll just turn around and go, you, I want to kill you!
I just happen to be unhinged myself.
Don't let me stop!
This larger-than-life persona has been a blessing and a curse. It's helped him stand out from the crowd and develop a cult following online, but it may be reason in part why he's not taken as seriously as his peers. While Cage may not always receive the widespread acclaim he deserves, it's clear he's truly an actor's actor.
Nick Cage.
I love Nick.
Is so interesting.
I would be acting opposite him and be like, holy fuck.
I was attracted to the project.
That's Nicolas Cage.
Because of Nicolas Cage.
He was just as great as I expected him to be.
Freaking phenomenal actor.
He was so focused and charming.
A museum of knowledge.
They broke the mold.
A legend.
For him to continue to pull stuff out of a hat that you haven't seen before is amazing.
Cage has done it all. Starring in more than 100 films across 5 decades, he still remains relevant today because he's unafraid to change. He is a master of reinvention, and he'll never stop acting.
Acting, in many ways, it's my guardian angel. It's took whatever destructive energy I may have taken on through life experience and alchemically converted it, transmuted it into something productive, constructive. It is not per se therapy, but it is a way of purging. If it's a necessity, what else can you do? You know, I'm not going to stop.